So now that the AirPod Max are here, there's definitely a lot of hype around them. Now the AirPod Max really do deliver when it comes to sound and active noise cancellation. But today we're going to be comparing them to both the Sennheiser PXC 552s and the Sennheiser Momentum 3s. Now they might not be as popular as, let's say, the Sony 1000 XM4s or the Bose NC 700s, but I still really do like these headphones, but for very specific reasons. Now, when it comes to price, this is somewhat of a big factor for the PXC 552s. Now, these headphones retail for $350, and at that price, they are a bit of a tough sell because these headphones are missing some key features when compared to the Sonys and Bose. However, these headphones can routinely be found on sale for $200 now. And if you're willing to put up with some quirks, then I say these headphones are a great buy at that price. But then there are the Momentum 3s, which have a retail price of $400, but they can routinely be found on sale for around $350 now. And like I mentioned in the past, these are my favorite sounding ANC headphones. And then there are the AirPod Max, which retail for $550, which I do find hard to justify. But nonetheless, if you want to pick any of these headphones up, they'll be linked down below. And if you want to learn more about any of these headphones, please watch their full reviews because we're only going to be going over their main differences. Now, first off, let's address the carrying cases here. The AirPods Max come included with this smart case. Now, even though the smart case feels premium with a luxurious feeling outside and velour inside, it's just not going to properly protect your headphones because this headband is just so exposed. But then there are the Sennheisers, which both come included with cases, but these aren't hard shell cases like the ones you would get with either the Sony 1000 XM4s or Bose NC 700. Technically, these cases are better than the smart case that you get with the AirPod Max, but I still worry about crushing these headphones if you were to cram them into your backpack. So personally, I feel that if you are going to be traveling or commuting a lot with any of these headphones, then you should invest in a hard shell case. But now let's talk about the headphones themselves. Build quality wise, the AirPod Max are great. They have aluminum ear cups, this headband slides in and out. Up top, this headband is covered in silicone, giving us a soft touch feel. We've got this fabric mesh canopy that has a surprising amount of spring to it, and then we've also got fabric ear pads. All in all, the AirPod Max are exquisitely built. Whereas both of Sennheiser's headphones are also very well built, but they're very different from one another. Not just in looks, but also in material choice. Now, the Sennheiser PXC 552s have a mostly plastic body. Their ear cups have a soft touch feel to them, they have a traditional clicking headband, and the leatherette on these headphones does feel a little synthetic when compared to other leatherettes like the one that you'll find on Bose's headphones. But then there are the Momentum 3s, which are using considerably finer materials. They have smooth plastic ear cups, which are attached to these exposed stainless steel arms, which are then met with this sheepskin leather wrapped headband, and the sheepskin leather is also found on the earpads themselves. And quite frankly, the feel of this real leather on these earpads feels awesome. And even though the leatherette on Bose's headphones feels great, it still pales in comparison to the real stuff. So build quality wise, the Momentum 3s are in a whole other league when compared to the PXC 552s. But when compared to the AirPod Max, I think they're evenly matched. Both of these headphones are using more premium materials than what you would find on your typical pair of ANC headphones. But I think it's very hard to crown a definitive winner because these headphones are taking two very different approaches. The AirPod Max are taking a more synthetic, futuristic approach, whereas the Momentum 3s are taking a more classic, rustic approach. However, both the AirPod Max and Momentum 3's use of finer materials does affect them when it comes to weight. For starters, the AirPod Max weigh way above average, coming in at 385 grams, whereas your typical pair of premium ANC headphones weigh in around 270 grams. So what this 385 gram weight on the AirPod Max means is that these are a pair of headphones that you never forget that you're wearing even when you're just sitting still. And these are also a pair of headphones that you really notice swinging around on your head when you're walking around with them on. And also, these headphones might also develop some neck strain on the back of your neck after wearing them for like an hour or so. Now, the Momentum 3s are also a little heavy, weighing in at 305 grams, but these are more manageable than the AirPod Max. With the Momentum 3s, they're easy enough to ignore when you're just sitting still, but you do notice these headphones quite a bit when you're walking around with them on. However, these headphones don't develop any neck strain after long use sessions. You really only start seeing neck strain after we go above the 350 gram mark. But then there are the Sennheiser PXC 552s, which weigh in at 227 grams, and I would consider these as a pair of ultra lightweight headphones. Because for comparison, the Bose QC35s, which are also rather lightweight, weigh in at 240 grams. The Sony 1000 XM4s weigh in at 254 grams, and the Bose NC 700s weigh in at 264 grams. So what this ultra lightweight on the PXC 552s means is that these headphones are super easy to forget that you have on, and you barely even notice them when you're walking around with them on. But weight aside, the Sennheisers are more comfortable than the AirPods Max for two key reasons. First off, both of Sennheiser's headphones have much less clamping force than the AirPods Max, making them big head approved, whereas the AirPods Max are not big head approved because they have a lot more clamping force. Now, I've tried stretching these headphones out and leaving them stretched out overnight, but these headphones still have a lot of clamping force. So if you want something with a looser fit, then you'll definitely want to go with either of the Sennheisers. But then there are the earpads. Now, all three of these earpads are super spacious and they should have no problem accommodating most ear types. But the earpads on the PXC 552s are even more spacious. But one key thing to keep in mind here is that the earpads on the AirPods Max are fabric. And personally, I am not a fan of these fabric earpads because they are very coarse. So for me, they can get itchy at times. Whereas the sheepskin leather and leatherette found on the Sennheisers don't get itchy. However, one pro about the fabric earpads on the AirPods Max is that they do a really good job of not overheating, whereas the earpads on the Momentum 3s can heat up a little bit. Now, they don't have an overheating problem, but the PXC 552s do stay cooler for longer because their earpads do have less surface area coming in contact with your skin. So overall, even though the AirPods Max have amazing build quality, they're not the most comfortable headphones to wear. They weigh way above average, they're not big head approved because all of their clamping force, and their fabric earpads can get itchy. Now, without a doubt, the Momentum 3s are much more comfortable to wear than the AirPods Max. But keep in mind, they are a little heavier than your mainstream premium ANC headphones, and their earpads can get a little warm. But then there are the PXC 552s, and one of the main reasons why I like these headphones so much is because they're super comfortable. They're ultra lightweight, weighing in at 227 grams, their earpads are super spacious, and they barely heat up. That's kind of the reason why they've been my main editing headphones. But when it comes to tech specs, one of the biggest quirks about the PXC 552s is that they still charge via a micro USB port, which is somewhat of an inconvenience now. And I do find it very weird that the PXC 552s charge via a micro USB port, because they were announced alongside the Momentum 3s, which charge via a USB-C port, as they should. But then there are the AirPods Max, which charge via a Lightning port, which is good because you can charge your iPhone and headphones with the same cable if you still prefer to use a wired connection. Because if you switched over to MagSafe on the new iPhone 12s, then you're back to having to charge your phone with one cable and then another cable to charge your headphones, because unfortunately the AirPods Max don't support MagSafe. Now, when it comes to battery life, both the AirPods Max and PXC 552s have an advertised battery life of 20 hours with the active noise cancellation turned on, which is okay, and they should get the job done, but I do feel that these headphones could do better because a lot of headphones these days are trying to shoot for that 25 to 30 hour battery life mark. But then there are the Momentum 3s, which have an advertised battery life of 17 hours, which is quite a struggle. And that's one of the main reasons why I say these things are great at-home headphones, because you're gonna have to charge these things up a lot. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, there are a few key things to keep in mind here. Now, the AirPods Max are using Apple's H1 chip. Now, besides making it super easy to pair these headphones up to your phone, it also allows you to easily hot swap between any of your Apple devices associated to your iCloud account. So this could be a big deal for any Apple Power user who might have an iPhone, multiple Mac computers, and maybe even an iPad. Whereas both of Sennheiser's headphones can be simultaneously connected to any two Bluetooth devices at the same time. Now, I do feel that two Bluetooth devices should be plenty for most people. I think most people just need to hot swap between one phone and one computer. But if you are an Apple Power user with an iPhone, multiple Mac computers, and maybe even an iPad, or even if you have a hybrid setup like me, with an Android device or maybe even a Windows machine, then you might be interested in that H1 chip. But from a performance standpoint, all of these headphones have zero latency across the board when watching movies or videos on your phone, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device. But when it comes to audio codecs, the AirPods Max only have support for SBC and AAC. Now, if you're an iPhone user, this doesn't really matter because iPhones top out at AAC anyways. And if you're going to be streaming your music, AAC is going to be perfectly fine. But both of Sennheiser's headphones do have support for higher quality audio codecs. Now, they both have support for SBC and AAC, just like the AirPods Max, but they also have support for aptX and aptX low latency. But if you want to, you can always just use a wired connection with either of Sennheiser's headphones because they both have a 2.5mm audio jack, and they come included with audio cables. Whereas with the AirPods Max, they don't have an audio jack, but you still can use them with a wired connection, but you are going to have to get Apple's Lightning to audio jack cable, which is sold separately. And also, just putting it out there, you can always just use the USB-C port on the Momentum 3s as a wired connection as well. But now let's talk about listening to music with these headphones, because they all sound very similar to one another, which is not a bad thing at all. Now for starters, personally, I like using my PXC 552s with their boost adjustment set to rumble and with their spatial adjustment set to near. Now with these settings, the PXC 552s sound very similar to the AirPods Max, except the treble on the AirPods Max is a little higher and their bass does hit a little harder. But regardless, both the AirPods Max and PXC 552s sound much more open and have better instrument separation than your more mainstream options like either the Sony 1000 XM4s or Bose NC 700s. And both the AirPods Max and PXC 552s have strong vocals and dynamic bass that allows you to physically feel your music. Albeit, the vocals and bass on the AirPods Max are a little stronger than on the PXC 552s. Now personally, I do wish that we could reduce the treble on the AirPods Max a little bit because they can get a little ear piercing on a rare occasion. But overall, I do feel the AirPods Max and PXC 552s are evenly matched when it comes to sound. Then there are the Momentum 3s. Now I've said this in past videos, but I do feel the Momentum 3s sound noticeably better than the AirPods Max. The Momentum 3s sound more open than the AirPods Max, and unlike the AirPods Max, since their treble isn't as high, they don't get ear piercing. Now they still have strong vocals, but they aren't all up in your face like they can be with the AirPods Max. But then there's the bass. While in their neutral EQ, the bass on the Momentum 3s resonates deeper than the bass on the AirPods Max. But if you want to, you can always go into their EQ settings and raise their bass to the point where they're going to physically rattle your head a good amount. So overall, I enjoy how the AirPods Max sound, and I think they should be able to please most people because they have crisp vocals, a decent amount of physical bass, and they sound spacious. But the Momentum 3s sound more spacious with more relaxed vocals so they don't overpower the instrumentals, and they also have harder hitting and a deeper resonating bass. But if you are someone on a budget, then you can't go wrong with the PXC 552s because they really do rival the AirPods Max. But now I want to quickly touch on the media control buttons on these headphones because they're all very different. Now the PXC 552s are using a touchpad. Now for the most part, this touchpad is very accurate and easy to use. But some people just don't like touchpads or want to have to deal with touchpads on their headphones. So both the Momentum 3s and AirPods Max have you covered with their physical media controls. Now the Momentum 3s have your traditional 3-button setup, whereas the AirPods Max have their digital crown. Now I am indifferent about either of them, but the physical buttons on both of these headphones are still easier to use than touchpads. The only thing that I will say is that I kind of wish the buttons on the AirPods Max had a better click to them, because they are starting to feel a little mushy. But something all of these headphones do have in common is that they all have wear sensors. So when you take them off, they'll automatically pause your music, and when you put them back on, they'll start playing your music again. Now personally, I don't really care for wear sensors, and I usually just turn them off on all of my headphones, but they could be a big deal to someone. But now let's talk about the active noise cancellation on these headphones. Now, even though I absolutely love my Momentum 3s, Active noise cancellation is not their strong suit. The ANC on the Momentum 3s performs more like the ANC that you'll find on a pair of entry-level ANC headphones in 2020, like the Sony Watcha 710N. Whereas the ANC on the PXC 552s performs more like what you would expect from a pair of premium ANC headphones. And then there are the AirPods Max, which brutally go after constant low frequency sounds. But so that you can see for yourself, we're going to jump into an ANC test. So, like you may have just seen, the ANC on the Momentum 3s just doesn't compare to the ANC on these other two headphones. Now, the Momentum 3s are going to get the job done if you're using them at home, but if you're looking for a pair of headphones to constantly travel with, then you are going to definitely want to look at something else. Now, when it comes to comparing the ANC on the PXC 552s and AirPods Max, since the AirPods Max just utterly annihilate constant low frequency sounds, they managed to block out noticeably more road noise than the PXC 552s. And even though more higher frequency sounds managed to get in during the chatter portion of this test, since the AirPods Max just destroyed those low frequency sounds, they give the perception of blocking out more chatter as well. However, I will admit the PXC 552s do a very impressive job of dealing with the random higher frequency sounds. But overall, even though the AirPods Max do block out an impressive amount of noise, their major drawback is their cabin pressure. Now, you're not going to feel too much cabin pressure if you're listening to music with these headphones, but you might feel like you gotta pop your ears. But if you're watching a movie or video with these headphones, you will notice that cabin pressure a little more. And you're really going to notice that cabin pressure if you're not playing anything with these headphones. Now, cabin pressure might not be a problem for everybody, but it is for me. I feel that if you have an issue with the ANC on the Bose QC35s, then you'll probably have an issue with the cabin pressure on the AirPods Max. Whereas with both of the Sennheisers, these headphones barely have any cabin pressure. Now, given the fact that the Momentum 3s don't block out too much noise, this is to be expected, but it's also nice to see that the PXC 552s also don't have a lot of cabin pressure, because it does contribute to overall comfort. But now let's talk about the ambient modes on these headphones. Now, the AirPods Max have a very natural sounding ambient mode, and their microphone array does a great job of blocking out wind noise when walking outdoors. But personally, I just wish that we could reduce the amount of ambient noise if the AirPods Max let in, because they let in a lot of noise. Now, you also can't adjust how much ambient noise the Momentum 3s let in, but they do let in less noise than the AirPods Max, which is good. But when compared to the AirPods Max, it doesn't sound as natural. But nonetheless, the ambient mode on the Momentum 3s gets the job done. But then there are the PXC 552s, which don't have an ambient mode where you can simultaneously pump in sound around you and play music at the same time, like you can with these other two headphones. Instead, when you double tap on your touchpad, they will pause your music and pump in the ambient sound around you, like this. And then when you double tap on your touchpad, they'll go back to normal again. Now personally, I really like having this type of feature on my headphones, and the Momentum 3s can also do this, whereas the AirPods Max don't. But I still wish the PXC 552s had a full-on ambient mode, because it's very useful either for when you're walking around the city, or even for when you're working from home. But finally, here's the microphone test. Now, all three of these headphones have good sounding microphones for phone calls, but I can't help but feel that the microphone on the Sennheiser PXC 552s sounds a little better than the microphone found on the Sennheiser Momentum 3s. With the Sennheiser PXC 552s, I can't help but feel that my voice sounds a little clearer. But overall, I would try to take phone calls with both of the Sennheisers in a quieter environment because they don't do the best job of blocking out ambient noise. Whereas with the AirPods Max, these headphones do a great job of blocking out constant low frequency sounds like road noise. Because right now, we're running the road noise simulation. And if we were to switch over to my lapel microphone, you're going to clearly hear all of this road noise. But if we were to switch back over to the AirPods Max, it is severely reduced and my voice is still front and center. Now, the AirPods Max also do a decent job of blocking out chatter, but you might get some interference in your voice from time to time, or you still might get a lot of chatter in the background. Nonetheless, all of these headphones have decent microphones for phone calls, but the AirPods Max do have the superior microphone here. So with all that being said, even though the AirPods Max really do deliver when it comes to sound and active noise cancellation, they aren't without their drawbacks and quirks. Even though the AirPods Max block out more noise than both of the Sennheisers, because they brutally go after those constant low frequency sounds, they do have a considerable amount of cabin pressure, which contributes to overall comfort. And in general, comfort is the AirPods Max's biggest setback. These headphones way above average, they have a lot of clamping force so they aren't big head approved, and their fabric earpads can get itchy at times. Now, I've said this in the past, you can have a pair of headphones that sound great and block out a ton of noise, which is what we have with the AirPods Max. But if your headphones don't fit well, you're not going to want to wear them, which is a shame because I really like how these headphones sound. So comfort is the main reason why I still recommend either of Sennheiser's headphones over the AirPods Max. Now, even though these headphones might not be as popular as, let's say, the Sony 1000 XM4s or Bose NC 700s, I still like and recommend them for very specific reasons. I absolutely love the PXC 552s because of their comfort. They're super lightweight, weighing in at 227 grams, so you barely notice them when you have them on, and their earpads are super spacious, and they do a great job of staying cool. The PXC 552s also block out a decent amount of noise with very little cabin pressure, but more importantly, these headphones really do rival the AirPods Max when it comes to sound. But keep in mind, these things are still using a micro USB port for charging, and they don't have a full-on ambient mode, which is a shame. But if you can get them for $200, these things are a steal. And then there are the Momentum 3s. Now, these headphones aren't the best for commuting or traveling on a daily basis because of their rather short battery life, entry-level active noise cancellation, and just sheer bulkiness. But I absolutely love how they sound. They sound more open than the AirPods Max, and they have deeper and harder resonating bass. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.